Good morning, Mr. Clark.
Morning. How are you?
Doing all right. Doing all right.
Yeah.
Well, we're about to embark on our 30th episode here, y'all. Just to let you know, it's crazy that it's got to that number, but kind of proud of what we've done so far. So let's keep going with it. Well, today I think we're going to be on more on the tech side and less on the care and the emotional side of things. We've got a handful of technical things we want to talk about today. Let's start it off with you, Mr. Clark. Tell us what you've been up to here.
Well, I'm gonna start on a journey a little bit, and I'm getting there. I'm gonna get to a place. So, this all started with me having to make a decision about my mom's iPhone. It's a little long in the tooth, and so I had to end up deciding that it's too old. And then, how do I get the data from the phone it's on now to something that can work? And then, as I did that, I said, "Well, I'll just talk about how I transfer things," which is an interesting story. I'll get to in a minute. But the first thing I thought is most people, many of our listeners might say, "What do you mean too old? What does that mean?" So I thought I would start off by saying, when is a phone too old to use? And I thought I'll do a little research, come on, and I came with some charts with my AI friends, and it turns out that there's a very different answer for iPhone than there is for Android. And there's a reason for that. You and I are both unabashed iPhone admirers. Won't say other people would use worse names than that, but we're gonna say admirers. I think there's a reason in this chart that says why we feel that way, right? Because when you look at the chart I came up with, iPhones are more durable. They
Yep,
last longer.
it generally last longer.
They can cost more, but they last longer. And so what I noticed is that the typical lifespan for an iPhone is usually 5 or 6 years. Now, I know people that are using iPhones that are way older than that. My mother was using an iPhone 7, and the 7 came out 10 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
And for her needs, it was doing what it needed to do. Now, the battery was shot. I couldn't update anything on the OS. There was a whole lot of things that I would have a problem with. But for her, making calls, receiving calls, it was fine. It stayed plugged up. She only used it in an emergency and referred most of her stuff to her computer anyway. So if you're in a situation like that, I can understand how you get to a point where a phone like that's still useful. Now that I have to do modern things with it, it wasn't useful anymore. So I,
So you were forced with a decision here.
I was forced with a decision, and you may be forced with a decision with your loved ones too. So 5 to 7 years is common for iPhones. They usually feel old around year 5, and that's usually when support happens. But Apple's been really good about maintaining security updates. As a matter of fact, a security update for this phone, the phone I replaced for my mom, came out last month. So they're supporting something up to 10 years old, which is admirable, very
Yeah.
admirable.
Yeah. No doubt.
They tend to they tend to perform and decline slower over time, but still work. So there were things it did that took a long time, but it got through them. I know other phones that will just stop doing things. iPhones don't tend to do that. They tend to just slow down. And that, like I said, security risk and odd behavior comes along with that too. On the Android side of the house, you can get 5 years, but it's rare. Most things are 1 to 2 years. And it feels old about the third year, according to what some of the research says. It varies widely by brand. So Samsung phones last longer than, say, some other cheap Android phone out there, and that makes sense. Some of them vary in price. Samsung phones tend to be in the same price ranges as iPhones for the most part. Their security infrastructure is not as good. And this goes back to probably why you and I are iPhone fans, is that optimizations often depend on carrier assistance. So your carrier has to allow your phone to get an update. I think that's true for certainly for older Android phones. Maybe not so much on newer ones, especially with the way Google's reset their formats. But you had to go to your Verizon, and Verizon had to allow the update to come to your older phones. And so there's a shorter lifespan there. They usually anywhere from like 2 to 3 years less, and users upgrade slightly sooner. So there's a there are lots of phones in the Android world, and because you get drawn to things like a fold or a better camera or all the things that happen with the Android side of the house, those users usually upgrade sooner. they don't keep phones long. I know most of my people, my Android users have had dozens of phones, and I've had in single digits. So, and that's pretty common without that. So it's just something to think about. I'll put this chart into the show notes for people to look at. If your phone or your loved one's phone is fitting this area, it's better to do it to recognize that it needs to be changed sooner than wait till it's 15 years old and there's nothing you can do. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I can tell you, it's been my experience just from my parents used to use Android phones. And I noticed that I would keep them around just as test devices and things like that. And I noticed that after a certain amount of time, they stopped getting updates. And the what you ran into was at some point after that, the encryption keys for the browsers would fail, or they would actually expire themselves, and you couldn't even do anything on the web with them at
that's
that
right.
point. And I think that was actually, from what I read, was that latest iPhone 5 update was to change out the encryption keys so that you could still get to the app store, and you could still get to the web to do things. So yeah, I think it's worth keep paying attention to. It's been my experience that I got iPhones cost more, but you get a longer period of time that you use them. If you're in the state where you can't put that money up front, the Android phones are great alternatives. They do wonderful things, but you got to keep up with them and know that they're going to expire quicker than the iPhones will.
And in that line, flagship phones last longer than other kinds of phones. So
Yeah.
if you buy the Pro on the Apple side and you buy the high end Samsung, you're going to get a year or so more out of that because of the hardware is usually not is almost bleeding edge and not common. So yeah, you got to watch out for that too.
So I hear you've upgraded you're in the process of upgrading your mom's phone. So how did that
Yeah,
go for you?
there's a continuing story there. So she's now moved into a different rehab facility, and they don't have a phone in the room. And
Hmm.
so the last place we did had a phone line. So I had to figure out how to get that in. And I'm still working on that. So that story is probably coming for another podcast. But the
Upcoming.
first thing I had to do was actually do the transfer. And the other thing to understand is it used to be you could go to a carrier and say, here's my old phone, here's my new phone, please transfer these. And there's some carrier error, especially the ones that are owned directly by the carrier that still have the machine and the equipment to do that.
Yep.
But there are a growing number of cell phone people who are not related to the carrier directly. They're kind of like, um, I guess the best word would be what we say outlets.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
owned by other people. They have the T-Mobile name, the Verizon name, but they're not directly owned by T-Mobile or Verizon. They don't typically have that kind of equipment, and they're relying on the new phones, especially the newer phones, to have the ability to draw data from another one. So, and that's true for Mac. So if you're using the modern operating system, that's 26, or even the one before that, which I believe was, can't think of time, can't think of the one off the top of my head, but the one that
It's like
goes along with,
18, I think. Yeah, something
yeah,
like that.
18, iOS 18. Then they have a utility inside of it that allows you to transfer data from one to another, and it's actually pretty cool. If you bought a new phone or even a new machine, you probably remember having to hold something up to match a kind of particle looking uh, symbol and then match it to it. So it's almost like you're doing a QR code, but it's not quite the same. And then once it links the two of them, you can actually transfer data between phones without even having a cable anymore. It does it over whatever Wi-Fi you have, or it does it even with flash Bluetooth. Now Bluetooth can take
Like a
long,
peer-to-peer situation there.
a peer-to-peer
It'll
kind of thing.
yeah. Yeah.
And so I did that with my old iPhone 7 for my mom to an iPhone 13 mini, and it worked great.
Cool.
A
Cool.
couple of things to keep a note. If you're doing it over Bluetooth, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
So if you have Wi-Fi that you can use and you can put both phones on it, use it.
Yeah, it makes a
Uh,
big difference. I've run into that before too.
and it's not like you take the phone data from one iPhone and you drain it from the other one, and then the other phone is unusable. No, you still have to transfer the SIM card. So you may have to go if you don't feel comfortable transferring SIM cards from one phone to another, you might have to get your carrier outlet to do that. They can certainly do that. Or if you're using a new enough phone where you have an eSIM, then you may have to get the carrier involved to actually transfer the eSIM from one to the other. The SIM is what actually makes the phone calls in your phone, but your older phone can double to to get text messages and email and notifications on it, as long as you're connected to Wi-Fi. So that might be helpful if you're trying to say, well, what text messages did my mom get? What she's seeing on her phone side of the house. You can monitor it from there. So that's something to keep in mind. That could be something useful.
A very good point. And just in case our listeners don't know this, SIM in SIM card stands for Subscriber Identity Module.
Yes.
And in the newer phones, they instead of having an actual physical chip that you move between phones, it can take the data off of that chip and move it in an electronic way over to your or a digital way over to your new phone. And in fact, like newer iPhones don't even have a little tray or slot for a physical
No, they
SIM
don't.
card anymore. They're all electronic all the time.
Yeah, but if you're dealing with an older phone you're transferring from, chances are you're dealing with a SIM.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have a chart for that talks about each of the methods for that. There are lots of ways of doing it. Maybe your phone doesn't have a networking capability anymore. Maybe that breaks. You can do it via computer, and there's a way to do that. And I'll put some instruction in there. And then there are Android alternatives, and so I have a chart for that. Very similar in some ways, but having some differences because you'll have to identify a little bit more about that Android phone to figure out which one you want to use. It can do a cable transfer. There is an Android Swiss application depending on what OS you got and what phone. And so, just something to talk about how you do that.
The tools are there. The tools
Yeah.
are there for you. And seek out if you have to seek out your friendly neighborhood tech guy or teenager. They can usually help you out.
Usually, sometimes they're the same.
Yeah, sometimes they are for sure.
I walked into the T-Mobile store and had them just to see what they had to do to transfer the SIM, and it was two teenagers that worked in high school.
There you
They were
go.
there, so it was kind of interesting to see.
Digital natives for sure.
Yeah, this is true.
Born
This is
digital.
true.
So do you want to talk about what your plan is for your mom's phone? Like how you're gonna
Yeah, so
set that up?
and I guess one more thing is how do you get the iPhone 13? There are lots of resellers out there. There's one I usually use that's very nice to use. It's Gazelle, but there are others out there too that will sell you old phones. Even some old carriers who will sell you old phones. So you got to get a newer iPhone first, or you can buy a new phone. And there's lots of people don't realize that Apple and Android sell older phones, so you can get an iPhone 14.
Yeah, for sure.
Even though that's the latest one is a 17, and those are choices out there. Just watch out for that. My plan with my mom is to get her the phone. I'm setting it up on assistive access. We talked about that earlier. So you can simplify a phone so it can only do certain things. And I want to start off with calls and add on things as her rehab gets better.
Oh, that's a good idea. Don't overwhelm her with a lot of new changes all at one time.
Yeah. Couple of things for most, if you're doing this for a rehab or assisted or nursing home or assisted living, a lot of those places want you to name and label your phone. So get a case. Make sure that if you bring a charger in, that you find some label maker to label that particular item. Because most of those rooms are not the kind of things that are locked, and you want to make sure that you've got at least something on it that says it belongs to her.
That's a great idea.
So think about that.
And I can throw in there too, if you can, and if your loved one doesn't mind, get a wildly colored case, something that's very identifiable.
Yes.
And I would recommend before you leave that place, you take a photo of that phone. So you've got something you could forward to one of the administrators there. Say, like, listen, mom lost her phone. This is what it looks like. Even it has her name and stuff on it, but that might have peeled off or something. So here's a way you could see it.
Make sure that you if you're using iPhones, you can put things under Find My and make sure the device is attached to your account. So if you're doing this, it's time for them not to be on their own plan separately. You can add their device to them. I think it's up to 6 in your family so that you can track that phone and see where it is.
Yeah, that's the best way to go.
So
about it,
that's the best way to do it.
And I know Android has very similar things to be able to find
Absolutely
devices.
does.
So by all means, yeah, make it identifiable, put your name on it, make it so it's easy to find through electronic means if possible. And that's about all you can do at that point.
Yeah.
You've covered all the bases for sure. Wow.
So we'll put some information in show notes, and I'll probably add some more things now that we talked a little bit about some other ones.
Yeah.
Just to make this a little bit, guys. So that was a lot more involved than I thought, but it's really nice to know how you can deal with those ads. And if you can, pre-order some of those things. So if you try to do this in a limited time period, you'll get them all at the same time. Because what I'm running into now is I had to get the phone, wait for it to get here. I had to get the case, wait for it to get here. To figure out how to label things, wait for that to get there. So think about
Yeah,
that time.
there's a lot of overlapping things there for sure. And then hopefully in a future episode, you'll kind of give us the whole how everything transpired and how it worked out and how it's
Yes,
working for you. Yeah, that's good.
yes,
That's real good. Well, cool, man. Well, that's good. Thank you for taking us through that. I think that'll
yeah.
help a lot of folks, and I hope the notes that we put in our resources page and our show notes will help out too. So that'll be good. So I only got a couple of small things today. I want to talk about mostly techie, but one was a device that I found this week, or actually that the algorithm found and showed to me is a little device called Memory Board, and I'm going to put it up on the screen for people who are in YouTube watching this, so you can take a look at it. This is the web page for Memory Board, and what it really consists of is either a 10.1 inch or a 15.6-inch device that can show photos, it can show memories, it can show lots of things. And the way you get those things on there is there's an app that you use on your phone, and from that app you can send pictures to it. You can share that app with other people and a certain code, and like you can have multiple people in your family who can send pictures to it. And this is very similar to what we saw with the Framio that we talked about a while back. But what makes this thing have the superpower is it's not just photos, it's actually texts that can show up in big font on this thing to kind of be a reminder for your loved one who may be having memory problems. So the use case that they talk about is like in this case, there's a message that popped up on this one. It says, "Hi, Dad, I'll be over today at noon. Excited to share lunch together. See you soon." And I believe that you have control over how long that stays on the screen, how prominent it is, the fonts, and all that kind of stuff. But the whole point of this is to make it so that it's something that your loved one could look over and see and get a reminder quickly for something that's going to happen that day. So I think it's a pretty cool alternative. It's something worth taking a look at. It is memoryboard.com. They're not sponsoring us or anything like that. This is just a cool device that I ran across and thought, this could help some people out. So yeah, that's worth looking at, I think.
That's
And
a really cool device. And I also noted that the pricing was actually fairly reasonable. Some of the boards I've seen do a lot of nice things, but they're very expensive.
yeah, for sure. The 10-inch one on this one is 175. The 15.6 one is 275.
Yeah,
And
that's really
the
cool.
app is free and that kind of thing. So that's pretty reasonable. It's not cheap, but it is reasonable. And it's going to take Wi-Fi. If you got to have some connection to the internet to pull it off. But once you have that thing connected to the internet, then you can send messages and photos and things like all day long. What another thing I thought was cool about it is you had the ability to tag people. So if you had a photo that had Bobby and Barry in it, you could add the tags for Bobby and Barry, and it would be a reminder for that loved one that, oh yeah, that guy is Barry, that guy is Bobby. So
Well,
it would
even nicer.
it would
Yeah.
basically caption the individuals in the photos. So pretty slick, something worth looking at. I'll put a link in our show notes to it so you can go check out the webpage yourself. But memoryboard.com, all one word. That's an easy way to get to it. And that brings us to the other last thing I wanted to talk about was something that I ran into this week, and actually Bobby just ran into it a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Is there are some I can almost call them AI spoofers out there, or at least semi nefarious AI folks out there. What it is like I went over I had to get a new account with Claude.ai, and because for some work things that I'm doing, and I signed up and it was all good. It was looking good and I was using it and it was fine. So the next day I come in and I go up to my browser, I type in Claude, and I just wasn't thinking and I hit the first link, and it had me log in the exact same way that I did before. I use a social login, and I got in and I realized very quickly that this was not Claude. Some other AI product had just got me to sign up with them for a free account, but they had my email address at that point because I signed in with my Google credentials, and I was not proud that I let that happen. But I quickly deleted the account for that thing, and I made a note that to never just click the top link that pops up when you Google something. And from now on, I'm going into Claude, and I think you had a very similar Similar.
Exactly the same. I'm
Yeah.
setting up AI for this podcast, and I go, Barry, there's a new. It looks like a new interface here. He goes, No, it isn't. So even the ones who have some skill get caught in that. So I quickly found out that I clicked on almost a similar one. It was interesting. I mean, I don't think it. I hesitate to call them a charlatan. It's just it's a new. I've seen these AI rappers around that claim to give you, hey, we'll let you have access to multiple AI engines and things like that. But you have to be careful because I'm just using good old ChatGPT. I don't care whether I have all these other AI things. And they wanted me to pay some money. I was actually looking at a screen going, I'm not paying any money for this.
Yeah.
So yeah, you
They
gotta
want
be
money
careful.
and they're grabbing your data on the way in.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
absolutely true.
That's the truth.
So yeah.
All right. Well, man, yeah, those are all kind of semi nefarious is how I like to refer to them.
Yeah, it's gotta pay attention. Can't do this stuff at 4 o'clock in the morning and with your eyes half closed and think that, all right, well, it'll
There you
just
go.
work. No.
All right. Well, the one last thing I wanted to say is we've gotten some new hits on our feed
Ain't that
from
interesting?
another country, Hong Kong. We've gotten a bunch of hits from Hong Kong. So it looked to me either like somebody is binge listening to all of our stuff, or there's another AI out there who is listening to all of our all of
Has
our
identified us as
podcasts.
a proper source for training. I don't
Yeah,
know.
who knows? So I thought it was kind of interesting. But if you are a human out there in Hong Kong and you're listening to this, we appreciate you listening and telling your friends about it. We also had some from Germany too. There's a handful
Yeah.
from Germany
Yeah.
this week. So loving seeing all the international interest and hope to get more as we go along. But it's a short one today, but I hope you guys are all doing good. And this is episode 30, and we're hoping to see you back for 31 before too long.
Yeah. Before you know, we'll be at 40. How you know?
Who knows? All right, y'all. Y'all have a good couple of weeks, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. See you guys.